Hey everybody, what is up? I am Dr. Vibe, host and producer of the award-winning The Dr. Vibe Show. I am also a certified empowerment coach. I help men and those who love them get empowerment in their life so they can make life-changing, positive decisions and reach their goal. Tonight, we're going to have another special guest, but this is a friend. She's not a guest. This is a friend. And this is one of the ladies. No, forget the ladies. This is one of the people that keeps Dr. Vibe going. So you may want to stay. May stay on because she keeps me going, and I hope I keep her going once in a while too.
Absolutely.
I am blessed and highly favored to have Ms. Word. Ms. Alicia Word is in the house, and it is going to be an incredible conversation. I am always better after speaking with her and sharing with her. Always, always. But Ms. Word, why don't you share a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get right into our conversation tonight.
Well, as you know, but maybe your Blab folks don't necessarily know, I am an emotional intelligence coach. I've been coaching for about 5 years now. I also do some work in conflict resolution, interpersonal skills, restorative justice, and diversity and inclusion. I am a editor at the Good Men Project in the Raising Boys section. I also do some work for BLC Life, formerly known as Black Life Coaches. Got some great projects coming up with them soon. I'm not allowed to share yet. However, got some stuff coming up there too. I am also an author. My book is Get Right for Love, The Muscle Guide to Relationship Readiness. I also have a few adult coloring books that I'm working on. Got one published, a gratitude journal for kids. And I am a motivational speaker as well as a person who Dr. Vibe calls and we just kind of hang out. That's who I am.
There we do. And most importantly, she's a mom.
I am a mom. And I'm also a national food allergy advocate. So I'm going to throw that out there too.
Anything else you want to include in the repertoire? Every time I look at your website and go, there's something new. Oh my goodness. Well, you know, it's fantastic. So you know why I hang with this lady. You just heard everything that's going on. And we were chatting about a month ago. We got to get you on Blab. So she's already been on enough Blabs, but I said, we got to sit down every once in a while, have a chat on Blab and what's going on. And was it last night? Yeah, it was last night. It seems so long ago that we said,
I know, right?
Yeah, and going, what are we talking about? And you came up with a very interesting conversation piece. What is going on with the mental health system in America? Why do you want to chat about this?
Well, you know, I want to chat about this. One of the things that was brought to my attention, and guys, excuse me, I'm paying attention, but I'm tweeting because I need to let people know how important Dr. Vibe, James Lawson, and Jeremy Murphy are, because I see you guys are on there hanging out with us.
All right.
But, you know, in thinking about the recent shooting at the campus in Oregon and thinking about what was going on with that young man in his mind, the young man in Charleston, and also I'm still a student. I go to school online. And right now I'm taking a class, you know, theoretical views of organizational systems, right? Because I just love learning so much. And we got an alert that there is the same website that this man who actually did the shooting in the Oregon University actually got an alert, and the FBI and ATV are on it right now because there is a threat that there will be a college in the Philadelphia or surrounding area that's going to be hit. Or that there could be some kind of problem with them here today, being Monday. And this is something that came out over the weekend. So there was an alert that increased campus security was going, because I'm from Delaware. The school I go to is in Delaware, but the school is 20 minutes outside of Philadelphia perimeter. So with that, all the schools in the Philadelphia area, Southern New Jersey, and Northern Delaware are currently on alert, worrying and concerned about, you know, is there something that's going to happen? And it's on the same site, the anonymous site that this other person posted something. And when you kind of constantly get these type of threats all the time, and then you think about the numbers of people that are having issues with mental health, then it really is something that we need to talk about because of the alarming rates. I had an opportunity to take some looking online, and, you know, I did my research on some things. And Harvard Health actually put out a piece where they quoted some statistics from the National Center for Health Statistics that the rate of increase for people on antidepressants age 12 and over was 400% of an increase between 1988 and 94 compared to 2005 and 2008. That's an incredible statistic. If anybody wants that, I'll send you out the link to that. And then in 2011, 2012, the CDC said that 62% of Americans on antidepressants 12 years and above have been on for at least 2 years. And then 14% have been on for 10 years or more. So there was a time when you didn't hear about people being on antidepressants all the time. And is this great medicine? Are we advancing to be able to help people? In some ways, I think yes. But then what happened to talk therapy? What happened to behavioral therapy, where you're having conversations with these people to help them get through some of the things that they're dealing with? I had a lot of stress going on in my life, moved to Georgia, lots of things changed, was dealing with some stress, had some back pain going on, went to the doctor. The first thing he said to me was, "Do you want medication?" I absolutely didn't need any medication. So what is happening to our mental health here in the States? Are we just giving people a pill and saying, go for it? And for those who aren't getting the pill, are they walking around and things are just happening because these people are dealing with everything from depression to anxiety that are actually escalating into, psychopathic types of disorders? And then my parents both many years ago worked at a state mental health facility. Now, granted, there were a lot of horror stories that came out of some of those facilities around the nation. But the other part of that is a lot of those people that were in there needed to be in there for treatment. Because we have limited resources to be able to do some things for some of those people. You have families that have private insurance who can't afford to get their children the help that they need because their copays and deductibles are so high. You have people who are dealing with a lot of significant mental illness that are in treatment facilities for a small amount of time because there's no long-term facility for them. And then they're out there on the street as homeless people. You have people who are dealing with these mental health issues that are masking it the best way that they can. And these people are, they're in society with the rest of us. They're doing the best that they can. But a lot of these people are in relationships. There are problems. Domestic violence is not always just because somebody's ticked off. Some of it has to do with people who have behavioral health conditions that aren't being dealt with. And when you put this number of people who have some of the concerns that we're dealing with, and I'm talking about people who are on the extreme end, that you put them in regular society, into regular population, then what happens? The people get involved in relationships, they have children, things continue to escalate, or they're on the job and there are concerns that are there. The American Management Association actually put out a piece not long ago about psychopaths in the C-suite. People who have psychopathic disorders are able to live and be in normal society. However, they have certain tendencies that are creating all kinds of issues, for people in the workplace. There's a book called Snakes in Suits. And that book is all about people who have psychopathic disorders who are actually suits working in the C-suite in corporate America. So what's going on with mental health in America? I tell you what's not going on. It's not getting any better.
Why is it, and thank you for the thorough, because I know you're a research queen and you love digging into this kind of stuff. Why, in your opinion, do you feel that this is still the elephant in a room issue?
Well, a lot of this goes back many, many, many years, in history. And I can't speak to other ethnicities, but some of it I can speak to, not all. I'm not speaking for all African Americans, so let me put that disclaimer out there. Some of it, if you think about, mental health and something being wrong with somebody being different, if you go all the way back to slavery days, if there was a slave that was sick, he didn't sell. If there was a slave that had a mental health condition, he didn't sell. He was useless. If you have a family, regardless of ethnicity, where someone has a behavioral health concern, they're looked at as different. A lot of times people don't believe that they have a mental health condition. They think they're doing it for attention. And that's the same thing with neurological disorders. I went to a nail salon last weekend. Young lady who does my eyebrows every few weeks, had been out for a while, hadn't seen her. I go in, I'm thinking she's got a cold because she's making a really bizarre noise as she's doing somebody else's pedicure. So I'm waiting until she's finished. She comes over and I realize this young lady has Tourette's. Never knew she had Tourette's. She's been doing my eyebrows for 2 years. Never knew she had it.
Okay, just hold right there. Just hold right there. What is that Tourette's? I'd never heard that before. What is that?
Tourette's syndrome is a neurological disorder that causes people to have tics. And the tics,
Oh,
meaning
God.
that body jerking, sometimes they're cursing, sometimes they make strange, different noises, sometimes they bark, they do all kinds of things. It's a neurological disorder. So
Oh,
with
my.
this, a lot of people way back when thought the people who had Tourette's were somehow, possessed or something along those lines. Well, this is an Asian young lady, and she spoke to me because I felt sorry for her. She was very nervous. You could see that she was very self-conscious about the Tourette's, was concerned that I didn't want her to work on me. I never knew that she had it. So in any event, when I realized that she had it, I said, calm down, relax, take a few minutes, get yourself together, because I know that the stress and anxiety makes it a lot worse. So she said, you know what I have? And I said, yeah, I know what you have. And she said, I'm so stressed out and I'm so upset. So we got to having a conversation about all of the behavioral health derivatives that have now impacted her life because of her having Tourette syndrome. But because she doesn't have medical insurance, because in her community, she lives in the Asian community, they think that it's something she's trying to get attention for, something where she's possessed, she needs to go to church, that all of this has stopped her from getting what she needs as far as the help that she needs for the neurological disorder, which is a body disorder that is now creating these stresses and anxieties, which are now cyclical and go back and make the Tourette's even worse. And she's having one of the worst episodes she's had since she was 12 years old. So the stigma is cultural, it is religious, and it's in our society that if you have a behavioral health condition, somehow you are less than, and you're just crazy. It doesn't matter that you may be depressed, or you may have postpartum, or you may have some other sort of anxiety, or you may have ADD or ADHD. If you say that you have a behavioral health condition, suddenly they get this Norman Bates kind of thing. Somebody's in a One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You're completely crazy and you don't fit into regular society. And that's absolutely absurd. And because of the stigma that's related to it, it's very difficult for people to want to go out and get the help that they need for this. Because who wants to say something's wrong with me? If you have a physical disorder, you think, I can't help that. It just happens. But if you have a behavioral health disorder, somehow we take this blame and internalize it and make it something that we own, as somehow we are responsible for it. Our parents feel responsible for it. I wrote an article a while back about, parents who deny these behavioral health conditions in their children because they take it personal. Like, if I admit something's wrong with my child, then something is wrong with me. And they're doing a disservice, to themselves and to their children, when a lot of these disorders that, people have start out as a mild stress or a mild anxiety, but continue on and on and on. There are people who have bipolar, they have bipolar depression. It goes through, there are different stages of it. I'm not a mental health provider, so I'm just speaking from, some of the research that I know of, and there are different levels of it. A lot of these people, just like people who live in the LGBT community and other communities, live with these particular disorders that they're dealing with, to the point that some of these people take their lives or have a very low quality of life because they can't admit that they actually have a problem that can be more times than not dealt with by a behavioral health practitioner.
Interesting, and thanks for sharing as always and giving in-depth and really thorough thought process. And Jerry Murphy says stigma affects whole families of those with mental illness also. It
does. People, again, in this with this young lady that I spoke of at the salon, her family was looked at as if somehow there's something wrong with her family. And that, and the same, going back again to, and not comparing them as the same, but this particular, the issue of stigmatizing. I don't know if you remember, there was a gentleman that there was the, don't ask, don't tell in the military. And there was a gentleman who fought that, and he went really hard and fought that and was able to get some things kind of overturned in the military. And I had an opportunity to listen to him speak at a diversity conference last year. And he talked about the stigma on his family and how his family, because of his cultural beliefs, were stigmatized and basically kicked out. And it's the same thing, with people who have children who have behavioral health conditions, adults who have behavioral health conditions. Suddenly you are no longer part of the equation of what people consider to be normal, when in reality, we all have something. Somebody's has a nervous disorder. Somebody has an anxiety disorder. Somebody, has a mild paranoia. We all have something. And to put that stigma on people to the point that they can't get help is absolutely just, now that's crazy. If we want to define crazy, that's where the stigma is crazy. That's absolutely the only thing crazy in this discussion.
So if you're looking at what it seems though, at least media wise, more attention is being put onto this, but are more dollars being put towards it? Because you made a statement that the situation hasn't gotten any better, but isn't there more money being put examining towards mental health?
Well, let me ask you this question. Isn't there more money than ever being put towards cancer research, but we don't have a cure? But what we do keep finding are new cancers. Isn't there more money being put to HIV research? And now we're finding that there are different strains of HIV that are now mutating and creating different types of issues with people. So, you had somebody recently who ran a hedge fund, who bought one of the drugs that they use for HIV and raised the dollar price by some crazy number like 5,000%. So there's plenty of money that's out there. There's plenty of money that's out there. There's a lot of research, and there's a lot of good research out there. But money going to research dollars is not necessarily the money that goes to treatment dollars. And that's the difference. And you also have things like with medical plans. Up until 2 years ago, I had an HMO plan. My daughter has some special health concerns with, some illnesses other illnesses she's dealing with. And because of that, then we have to be concerned about a very high deductible that I have to meet every year. So that's just for her physical health concerns. But then I also have we always, have behavioral health insurance as well that goes along with it. And the physical health concerns can cause behavioral health issues. So there's an additional deductible that goes along with that. So if at any point I decided to go see someone for stress, or I decided to go see someone for anxiety, or I had some sort of issue, then I have to take care of a deductible for that. When you have a $2,500 deductible before your insurance picks up anything, wow, you tell me where the dollars are going. And that's as a single parent with dependents. There are people that I know that have $5,000, $6,000, and $12,000 deductibles that they have to pay every year. So where the money is going, you tell me. Because these companies, and some people want to blame the Affordable Care Act. There are a lot of companies that have been going to these high deductible dependent programs for quite some time now before that even came into play. So if you're looking at what people can afford, they're certainly going to deal with their physical health more often than they're going to deal with their behavioral health.
Those deductible rates are ridiculous.
Absolutely.
And they're not going down.
No, they're not going down. So, and when I say $2,500, that means that my insurance will not pick up $1 until I reach $2,500.
Wow.
So certainly, again, if you've got behavioral health issues that you have to deal with, in addition to any sort of physical health issue, you've got a cold, you've got the flu, you've got a backache, you break your finger, whatever that is. When you go to weigh the balance between the two of them, which one are you going to pay for more? You're going to pay for the one that appears on the surface to have more of an impact to your overall quality of life. Because if you have a behavioral health condition, you can try to make it work and go to work every day. But if you have a physical health condition, you may not be able to get to work.
And you converse with a lot of people. And I'm sure you're not the only person that's going through this situation. What stories are you hearing from other parents, other caregivers out there, whether they are going, like, in regards to taking care of their kids or adults of their age when it comes to mental health?
Lots of prayer.
Okay.
Mama and them are praying with grandmama. We have a lot of prayer going on. We also have people who thinking that, they just need attention. They just want attention. Or they deflect and say, well, in school, they're saying my child has a problem, but my child is fine at home. A lot of times you hear that from parents because, quite honestly, they're not going to admit the fact that, one, they can't deal with it, or two, they can't afford to take their child to have it seen about. It's a terrible feeling when you can't provide the services that are needed for your child, whether it's for behavioral health or if it's for physical health. And the other thing is, you have a parent that'll take a child to a doctor and they'll say something like, the first thing they did was try to hand me pills for my kid. I don't want to put my kid on pills. You've got 8-year-old children on medication, strong medication for ADHD, and they've never had an outburst. They've only had focus issues. But there are lots of other things that can be done for those kids. And I'm not a person who's adverse to medication if medication is needed. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is that if you've got a jelly pillow a kid can use, if you've got some focus, if it's diet related where you've got red dyes and you've got, foods that are causing some things for this child to have some issues that you can try, and you can use what they call the Feingold diet on a holistic level to be able to use that to help some of those kids. But the first thing that comes out of your mouth as soon as you go to a doctor, even your primary care doctors are pushing some of these antidepressants for everything. It's not, go join a women's group, go join a men's group, talk about this, go to bed, to talk therapy, go to art therapy. How about music therapy? How about pottery class? How about getting a coach? And I'm talking for some of the basic stuff. The first thing they want to do is shove pills down somebody's throat.
It's interesting you say that.
Big Pharma's making a lot of money.
Well, and it's interesting. There's a comment made by Hardball Media G. They get paid to push them.
And you are absolutely correct. They do get paid to push them. Now, my daughter, like I mentioned, she has some special health concerns. And, one of the medications my daughter has to take is called an EpiPen. You get EpiPen. They also have an Auvi-Q, which is epinephrine. And the money that has been put into marketing for some of these products is so incredible. And if you look at the cost of them, it's just absolutely insane when it comes to Big Pharma. Now I'm going to compare just, other medications, not necessarily the antidepressant medications, but when you have a lot of medicine for a child, that's a medicine they need for a life-threatening condition, where you have to pay $500 for 2 needles that last for 18 months, if you happen to use them. And then if not, in 18 months, you got to buy 2 more. But you got 2 sets for home, 2 sets for school, and you got an extra set in case they use that set, because you got to have it, because it's the only thing that can save your child's life until an ambulance gets there. So you've got the same thing with some of these things with behavioral health. Is that you've got these medications, they're out there. And think about it. When's the last time you went to the doctor and you saw a pharma rep come in? Hey, take our medicine, try our medicine. There are all these great things. If you buy this medicine, your world as a doctor is going to turn into a magical pumpkin. If you get this medicine, if you push this to your patients, so there is a lot of money in the pharmaceutical industry. And pharmaceuticals are needed for what they're needed for. However, are we overdiagnosing? Is that the answer now, just to give it to people and then call it a day? And that seems to be very often what's happening. But when you've got medications going to children at 8 and 9 years old that are antidepressants, and then you see the commercials that are on TV, may cause suicide, side effects, blah, 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 blah. Like, there's the whole disclaimer at the bottom of the commercial. Thoughts of suicide, thoughts of depression, thoughts of this, thoughts of that. But I thought this was an antidepressant. So why are you pushing that for somebody?
Exactly. Again, another comment by Hardball Media G. I have MS and they put me on a drug that was extracted from gerbil ovaries.
Gerbil ovaries. Wow.
Gerbil ovaries. I know I'm not the best looking guy, but do I look like a rat to you?
That's pretty
great.
Funny. I mean, sad but funny at the same time.
Absolutely. Now you're living in America. I'm hosting the show from Toronto, but I have lots of conversations with Americans. From where you sit, how has the Health Care Act impacted the mental health system, if at all?
Well, I think that, there are some opportunities for people to get help that is needed sometimes. But the other thing is, sometimes with behavioral health conditions, you don't know you need the help until you know the help is out there. For instance, I use this example all the time. Kids in a swimming pool and they buy this noodle thing, right? In order for them to float better in a swimming pool. Well, they didn't know that they need the noodle until the noodle existed. But nobody told them about the noodle, so they'll never use the noodle. And it's the same thing with some of the behavioral health things that are out there for people. There are some in different states, small amounts, where you can get a stipend for certain things with regards to even coaching. Not much, but maybe you don't need a behavioral health provider. Maybe you need a coach. But if you do need a behavioral health provider, there are companies, the average corporate entity now has the employee assistance programs. Do they push them? Do they let their people know that they have them? People usually go to employee assistance programs for discounts. Hi, Jeremy, and things like that.
Hi.
But, employee assistance programs are usually set up so a person can have 6 to 8 visits for free on the company. But when they give you your perks and your benefits, and this is just willy-nilly throwing a number out there, I'd bet you 9 out of every 10 people don't even know that their company has that benefit for them. So with the affordable care, there are people that can get additional things, and I'm not completely, knowledgeable about what's there. But even with that, people look at the affordable care and think, oh, well, this is great. I can get this insurance. I can go to a doctor. I can do whatever. But they don't think about the fact that there are some pretty high deductibles for some people, too, based on what your income levels are, even with the affordable care. And some of those people are in the same position that many of the others of us who have these high deductible plans are in. As far as, okay, I've got a $5,000 deductible, I've got a $2,000 deductible, I've got a $7,000 deductible. So depending on what your marketplace is in your particular state with the affordable care, some of those people are in the exact same boat.
Good stuff. Jeremy, again, thank you so much for joining the conversation. I hope you picked up your daughter okay.
Yes, I'm sorry I'm late, but I had to do it. My wife was at work, so I had no other choice.
Hey, that's more important than our conversation. You got to take care of home first. You've been providing some great commentary and feedback during our conversation. What would you like to add to the conversation? We're very interested to hear.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for bringing up this important topic. I haven't been able to listen to all of it because I was in the car with my daughter for part of it, but I did hear the beginning of the show. I'm an attorney, and I have family and friends that have mental illness, and so I've spent a lot of time on the issue. In fact, I've spent so much on the issue that I've just decided to kind of do something different and not practice law anymore.
Wow!
So what I've done, I've created what I call the Positivity Patrol, and what I'm trying to do is to help people that have anxiety, stress, depression, things of that nature. I think, is it Elisa? Is that how you pronounce it?
Elisa. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think you're right about, people are falling between the cracks of the mental health system. And I think both of you were talking about that. They're not getting the help they need. They're not getting it fast enough. And I think some of what they need is to just be able to, be able to turn some of that around with positivity. Sometimes they can flip, things from negative to positive. Sometimes it's more difficult than that. And you have to maybe try to turn 1 to 3 degrees at a time. And over time, you realize that you've maybe done a 180-degree turn. So I'm trying to create a global movement and have people join me that are just willing to be positive and help people that they see that are struggling. And I think if all of us work together on something like that, I think we can transform our society and just not see people struggling with these problems as much as they are today.
Jeremy, this is fantastic. I just want to ask, when people do things, make a turn like that, I'd be interested, what was the moment that came up that made you say, I've had enough with law and this is where my mission is. This is where I'm supposed to do. What caused that, if you're willing to share with us?
Well, last year I was working for a nonprofit, and I had been working for them for 7.5 years and just feeling dissatisfied. I wasn't, my heart wasn't there anymore. And when I was in private practice, I did work for as a legal guardian for 2 people with mental illness, and one of them for like 6 years or so. So that gives you a very close look at what people go through with mental illness, and just knowing the crisis management and that type of thing. But I realized sometime last year, I started to have people that, usually if you're a lawyer, people contact you for legal advice, but I was having people contact me for life skills advice. And I was, just crises I hadn't seen before, and kind of walking people through those successfully. And I think it was at that point that I realized I need to, do something else with my law license. And so now I'm more of a life coach, dealing with health and wellness with people, that type of thing. And just trying to kind of meet people where they are and figure out how we can take them to, to a better place and transform their life, turn things around.
Excellent. Great. Lisa, want to add anything?
No, I think that's really great. I think that, again, a lot of that goes back to what I was saying about how people go to a doctor for some of these issues that they're having. I'm having back pain. Well, I've got stress. Well, we all know that a lot of people with back pain, it's a derivative of the stress that you actually have going on in your life. True. So when I'm stressed, does that mean I automatically have to take a pill? And you go to a lot of the physicians, and that's the first thing that they're going to do is hand you some medication, as opposed to helping you learn about what you can need to do about stress management in your life to deal with some of the issues that you're dealing with. And I think the positivity, as you mentioned, is a key component of it. We are fed so much negativity day in and day out in this country through social media, through media outlets, in schools, on the radio. My son came home one day and told me that he's in high school. He just started high school this year. There was a kid in his school that OD'd on codeine, drinking syrup.
What?
Jeez.
9th grade. My son didn't even know what it was. Now, we've had a lot of talks about drugs and things like that, because you got to have your kids, kind of up to date about things. But that was one that I missed. And that was a conversation I hadn't had with him. And it scared him so badly. He says, Mom, I thought the kid was dead. I really thought the kid was dead. But my question is, what's happening in this kid's life that he needs to go and to do something like that, right? So is it peer pressure? Well, it could be. But it was just this kid with one other kid who seemed to be kids who've got some kind of social issues. That's another problem that a lot of the kids are having. Socialization and effective, healthy, positive socialization of children is at all-time low. What does this create? It creates all types of behavioral health disorders that really can be dealt with through talk therapy and even coaching and even positivity training, emotional intelligence. But instead, we're shoving medication down their throat. But then going back to my thoughts originally about us not having enough effective long-term mental health treatment facilities in the numbers that we need them in, because of all the barbaric treatment that happened in those facilities many years ago. It's kind of like they're barbaric, then we just need to outlaw them. No, we needed to fix them for those people who needed it. Because when you think about the numbers, in 2013, there was an estimated 10 million adults that were over the age of 18 that has serious mental illness. That's a lot of people that are walking around that are not getting the treatment and the help that they need. And again, this positivity thing that we need. We're in a country that it's just productivity. There's no time for emotion. There's no time for real life. There's no time for anything other than work. Of course, that's going to create a negative environment for people. So in order for us, as in what we're doing, practitioners in the fields in which we're in, to be able to help some of these people, we do have to talk about positivity, as Jeremy mentioned. We do have to be able to have these conversations with people so that we can help them reframe their perspective on life. Hi, Tony. Welcome.
Well,
hey, Tony.
Yeah, man. This is a wonderful friend who's joining in, and I never take it for granted when he joins in our conversations. Tony, how you doing?
I'm good, Dr. V. How are you, sir?
I am blessed, highly favored, magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Thanks for taking time out of your, I would say, positive, productive blab schedule to join us. What I don't know how, I know you haven't been on for a lot of the conversation, but this is a very serious issue, and I know you have some thoughts you'd like to share. So please, anything you'd like to share would be of a positive value to us and the audience.
Well, you're right. I haven't been here for a long time, but one of the things that jumps out at me when I look at the title of the blab is that it's a very serious issue in this country, and a lot of the issues that we have with gun violence can be directly related to the mental health system in America. Over the last 10 years, I've worked as a special education teacher, and I've worked with students with autism. And there's a lot of mental health that goes undiagnosed. And a lot of the people that are actually homeless are part of the mental health population. So there's so many different factors in terms of how mental health affects us in America. I would dare say that some of the significant prison population as well would be part of the group that is suffering with mental health issues. So it's a very serious issue. And I don't think that we're going to get any serious resolution to some of the ills that we are dealing with in our country until that is addressed. So I'm just going to stop right there because there's so much that you could say about mental health.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things I'm loving about Blab is I think I'm finding some interesting conversations that aren't being openly or widely talked about on Blab. Yes. And this is one of them that I'm not seeing being addressed a lot on Blab. And I'm enjoying having each one of you because each one of you have different evaluated perspectives of this issue. You know, Ms. Word is an emotional intelligence coach. Jeremy used to be a lawyer and then changed his turn in life to deal with because so many people were coming at it. You've dealt with young children or young people in the school system. So this is just a wonderful conversation about this. It's such a huge challenge. It's such a huge problem. Do you feel though the key starts at the home?
You know, Elisa, is that correct? Elisa?
Yes.
She was mentioning about the facilities that I'm old enough that I was around when some of the facilities were closed. And she is correct in that they had some significant issues that were going on. But the problem was, instead of fixing the institutions, they basically put the people on the street.
Yes.
And so, you know, it's a very, very big problem. So you have people who have mental illness, who were out in the population, who had children. So you have generational people out in the community with mental illness that hasn't been treated. And so you have children that are in schools that are in dire need of mental health support. They're not getting the mental health support. As a matter of fact, they don't even, in most schools now, have a school nurse. They have the school nurses rotating from schools, and so the school nurse can be at the school maybe one day a week, and it may be one afternoon a week or one morning a week. And so, you know, a lot of people don't realize that when they're talking about, you know, cutting funds at schools, it's not just the creative arts that's being taken away. It's physical education. It's any type of vocational ed. And so you get so many things that are wrong with our schools. I'm just not really sure where you start. I think that you have to start with the children because I hate to say it, but you have some adults that are, for all intents and purposes, going to be lost.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's a horrible situation, but I mean, there are some adults that are technically, they're going to be lost because if they were to get support at this time, how would you even go about, trying to start treating some of these people?
Well, you can't give up on them, though, Tony. I mean, I guess I don't want everybody to walk away with, that degree of cynicism.
I personally wouldn't want to. I don't want to give up on them. But
yeah.
But this is the thing for me. Because there is a climate of greed in this country, I just don't see how we can adequately address these issues, because most of the politicians are talking about balancing the budget, and to fix some of these situations, there needs to be some spending. Now, I'm not saying that you're throwing money away, but that you strategically plan ways in which you can get the best, buck for your dollar in terms of implementing some programs. But there's a climate in this country that there is no desire to help people. As long as me and mine are okay, it's just too bad about everybody else. And I hate to say it, but that's kind of the mindset. And I'm going to balance the budget if it means some people have to, suffer.
And I agree with you there.
I just want to add one more thing too.
I'm sorry.
A lot of people are not realizing, as bad as it is now, think about the fact that you're going to have the refugees coming that are going to also be taxing the systems in terms of our system is already struggling to provide limited services to people right now in America. So now you add the refugee populations that are going to be coming. So an already straining system is going to be impacted even more.
Well, I want to speak to that point, and I do agree with you wholeheartedly about the agenda of people who are responsible for allocation of these dollars to put into funding for different things. I will say, however, that this is all the more reason why practitioners that are on a grassroots level in coaching and these positivity organizations and these win-win organizations are actually making great strides. Even Google is understanding the importance of emotional intelligence and mindfulness and how we correlate those to neuroscience. So I think that, like anything in this country, when the powers that be find a way that they can make money from making this happen, that's when we will see the change. So I do believe that currently the agenda is not to do that. However, as they begin to see these other organizations start to make these strides and realize, hey, wait a minute, we can have somebody come into a Google search inside yourself workshop that costs $1,500, and they're paying these practitioners $1,500 to do this. We need to get a piece of this pie. So as sad and as crude as that sounds, I think that once the movement that is currently a very fast moving movement continues on down that path and gets the attention of the powers that be that have the money, then at that point we'll begin to see a shift. And suddenly practitioners in these areas will begin to get some much due respect that people should have anyway, but they'll get it all for the sake of the money. But in the long run, as much as that sounds very discouraging, it's encouraging if I help somebody. I don't really care if they decide to put the money here because they think that somehow they're profiting off of it. If I can help somebody who doesn't have to be on antidepressants, who doesn't have to go out and shoot up a church, shoot up a college, shoot up a school, I could care less. And that's pretty much, and it's a shame that we live in a society where that's really what it's about. And that's how change has really been effectuated in this country historically, is that when there is a dollar value attached to something, suddenly we have change. Case in point, to slavery. when a dollar value when it began to affect the economy, you know what? Slavery sure needs to be over. We need to be some good people. And it's the same thing with a lot of different things that are out there. You know what? We really need to do something about this mental health crisis in America. The underlying tone will be financial for some, but if I am able to assist one child with a social phobia, one adult who has an anxiety disorder, one mom who has postpartum depression who's seeing a coach and a behavioral health professional, then at that point, we've effectuated change. So I think the hope is that, yeah, it's pretty grim in some respects right now. It's pretty grim. But the hope is that these same people who are making it grim, we can take their greed and turn their evil for good.
Good stuff. Just before we go further, I just want to shout out to Kate Collins 10 and also to Avalora-Life Coach. Jeremy, want to add in on the conversation? You haven't said anything really. I see a lot of nodding of heads, but I know there's something inside of you want to share.
Yeah, I'm kind of, Elisa was talking about emotional intelligence, and I'm just noticing, I think a lot of us as adults, we found that we lose either some or all of that. And I'm curious what all three of you think of that. I think we get so caught up in having other intelligence, and then when people lose their emotional intelligence, and then they have to relearn those skills. That's a lot of work to help people get those skills back. And sometimes they don't want them back, but I'm not sure if people are losing that before they become adults or when they become adults. So I don't know. I was curious what your insights are on that.
Well, I think that we have been losing it when you think about the generations of, say, the 30-somethings and up. But the ones who were under 30, a lot of them didn't have it to lose because it wasn't given to them. Generationally, we lose a lot with each generation. The wisdom of Tony's generation may not be the wisdom of my generation. The wisdom of my generation may not be the wisdom of your generation and our Dr. Vibe's generation. We lose something with every generation because we think we know everything. We think we're smarter. Technology tells us that we're smarter than the generation before us, but we are now realizing that smarter makes things harder sometimes. So when you talk about the comparative between EQ and IQ, we have to start with our children. And really it comes down to basic things about basic self-awareness, impulse control. You know what happens in today's world? We want to give our kids everything because we don't have any time for them. So the first thing we do is we spend every dollar we have buying them something to make them feel better. As a parent, you don't even have impulse control. Therefore, you're teaching your child to not have impulse control. So they're not even losing their impulse control. They don't even have it because that's what they're being taught from day one. A lot of the different things, a lot of the lessons that we need to be able to pass on to our children, we aren't. But when you have second and third generations of people who didn't have it, it doesn't exist. The same goes for a lot of people who have a faith background, regardless of what your faith is. I don't care what your faith is. If your faith has moral background that makes you good from, understand, or good from bad and, evil from good and all that stuff is great as far as I'm concerned, because you need to learn that. But we have generations of people that don't even have a basic moral structure in their homes. So if you don't have basic values, basic morals, if you think it's cute to call your 3-year-old sexy, where's your value system? Why are you equating sex to your 3-year-old child? So with that said, it speaks into my point of you can't lose something you didn't have, but what we can do as people who are in the know to be able to do this, we can effectuate that change. You have children that have no social skills. They don't know how to manage their time. They don't know how to be self-aware. They don't know how to articulate their feelings. Anger, I'm angry. You're not angry. You're afraid. You're hurt. You're scared. And that has now gone into anger because you didn't know what to do with it. So it really starts with the children, but also there are adults that have to learn more about better decision making. Corporations are now understanding the importance of emotional intelligence, and they're hiring people like me to go in and to teach it. School systems are now beginning to hire social and emotional learning contractors. They contract people like me to come in. Life coach institutes are beginning to understand that we need more people who understand EI. Going back to Google, their Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute has a 6-month to a 1-year waiting list with their staff. They're doing this outside of their organization now in a 2-day workshop. It's incredible. I did day 1. I'm waiting for day 2. But it combines the EI, mindfulness, and the neuroscience, because the neuroscience talks about, and the mindfulness talks about how you can even begin to heal parts of your body and your brain and your immune system. It's incredible. Well, so my point, I'm going to just say this one last thing and kind of let you go with that, is that we've got to start with the kids, but we've got to show adults why we need to start with the kids.
Good stuff. Jeremy, I know you wanted to get something in there.
Well, I'm really glad you brought up mindfulness, because a lot of people have very painful things in their past, and they can't find a technique or treatment that will help them. And I think a lot of people have been helped by that. And it's a type of thing that a lot of us can teach people. And there's free Periscope and Meerkat broadcasts on that daily, and I mean you're even starting to see it here on Blab. And of course, if you need something more technical, some people will hire a coach. I did want to bring up the issue of how complicated it is to make the correct diagnosis of a mental health disorder. Mm-hmm. We encountered this even with my sister. She got diagnosed with one condition, and it took a couple of years to figure out what the actual condition was. And I don't know, it either was bipolar and then it was schizoaffective, or vice versa. I can't remember, which is the original one and which was not. But I mean, that made a big difference as far as which medication, how they're going to treat it. I mean, you have the issue of finding the right doctor, medical professionals, people that know what they're doing. But I think there have to be people in the trenches that can help with this, or this crisis is just going to explode. And that's partly why, I started to see this exploding with different people, and just feeling like I can't stand on the sidelines anymore. I've got to get in there and help as many people as I can.
Tony, we hadn't heard from you for a bit, but you get exposure at the school level, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I did. I've been retired now 2 years, so I'm out of the system.
But how did you see this in the time that you were involved in the school system? How did you see this problem increase? What are some of the things that you saw that really hit to your heart on how serious a problem and challenge this is?
Well, I actually worked at a school that was actually originally titled Psycho Ed. So
wow.
They have sent,
wow. I like.
They have
gosh, my gosh, go on.
Name to something that's a little more. I think it's Therapeutic Learning Center now, but originally it was. Excuse me. Originally, it was a psycho ed educational facility. And before I forget this, before I say anything further, I would like to know where Alisa is, because I'm not going to say what community I'm in, but as far as I know, they are not doing those type of push forward to, help their children. And so I was just curious to.
I'm in Atlanta.
What state you're in.
I'm in Atlanta.
You're in Atlanta. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I'm actually where I currently in South Atlanta. I recently saw a notice that they needed a contractor for some of the APS schools for social and emotional learning, and I actually am up in Gwinnett County, right, basically at the perimeter of the city, and they're looking now into bringing some folks in as well. for the social and emotional learning component. I've spoken to some people in a couple of school districts up north as well, in 2 or 3 different states that now have some schools that are bringing some people in. And, you know, a lot of this is on trial basis, but then there are some that really realize that they need somebody on staff regularly, which is amazing to me because they've got school counselors. But of course, as the budgets continue to get cut, school counselors they get cut. And as you mentioned about the nurses, because I know like we don't have a nurse in my kids' school, we got a clinic aide, you know, and the clinic aide is there. The nurse comes in once a week, like you mentioned. Wow. And it's the same thing with some of the counselors. So what they do is they contract out to coaches who actually work with kids on emotional intelligence because it's cheaper for them. And they have a different budget for that.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and admit that I'm in the Metro Atlanta area as well.
Okay. And I can give you some of the information on some of the schools that are looking that are doing that.
That's interesting.
Wonderful.
Well, I'm encouraged, you know, to hear that there are some systems that are looking at it. So that's encouraging. Yeah, I'm extremely glad to hear that.
I'll definitely connect with you offline, and I'll let you know ones that are doing that, so that where the ones where you know that need that, then you can use that, you know, as the benchmark to which they need to measure themselves by.
Okay, thank you. Sure. I appreciate that.
Yep.
That's wonderful. That's what I love when it happens, right? That's good stuff. Jeremy, I don't know where you're tuning or coming in from, but do you see anything positive in the school system in your neck of the woods in addressing this issue?
Well, I think the issue is finally being taken seriously here. I mean, we had a suicide prevention law that passed here in Nebraska. And so, you know, the schools now have to deal with that, you know, systemically and make sure if kids have problems that they're identifying those early and, you know, getting kids correctly diagnosed and that type of thing. So I think the infrastructure is forming and developing to find kids earlier, but, you know, I'll just tell you, you know, my sister, we didn't learn that she had mental illness until she was about 17 or 18. And, you know, so it's really difficult to detect it before that. It's possible, but you have the misdiagnosis issue with some people. So I think that infrastructure is forming and it's developing and it'll continue to spread. And so successful systems will replicate, throughout the country. And hopefully, you know, we can learn from pioneers in this area and figure out what systems could be set up to help people as early as possible to intervene when we know there's a problem and to, really try to form a nucleus of support around that person and make sure that they're getting all the help that they need and all the support they need.
Well, I'm going to start winding down our conversation tonight. So first, I'd like to thank each one of you for taking the time, and we'll continue to have these sort of conversations, especially I don't feel they're being done enough on Blab. I know Tony's on Blab more than I am. I'm on a lot, and I know Lisa, but we're not seeing a lot of these conversations on Blab, and I can at least myself, we need to have more of these, especially these type of conversations on Blab.
Dr. V, before we go, I realized that I got here late, and so maybe you guys discussed it. Did we talk about the need for mental health support for veterans?
Oh, glad you brought that up.
No, please.
I am too.
That's huge. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tony.
When I mean wind down, I don't mean a hard stop, but we're going to sort of wind it down. But definitely, please talk about that.
Well, I have a former coworker who, we started out doing social work together. So originally, when I graduated from college, I was working with the Boys and Girls Club, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, therapeutic foster care. And so I've had a lot of different experiences, but most of what I've done has been nonprofit work with children. And one of my coworkers, she started out as a social worker and went on to grad school and is a doctoral candidate and is a therapist. And she is a contract therapist for veterans. And so she has to go to the different, part of her job is to go to the different forts to help returning troops. Some of their concerns coming from, war zones and that kind of thing. And one of the things that she was telling me was that there are not enough people to do what she does, and that a lot of the veterans are falling through the cracks because they're coming back with, such a degree of mental illness that, that it's unfortunate. And, that also can go, PTSD, yes. And that also can be looked at as part of the homeless population as well. And I was just wondering if some of the programs that you have in place, Elisa, are addressing, the veterans. I was just curious if you were.
I can tell you that there are conversations that are going on right now that I cannot necessarily speak to in detail, but the short answer to your question is yes.
I'm glad to hear.
There are some things that there is some serious conversations going on right now about that that I've had the pleasure of being involved with because that is truly a problem.
Okay.
Jeremy, I know that you wanted to talk about this issue too, so please give some thought on this and heart on this one.
Yeah, we learned in the past year or two that my dad had he was clinically depressed and he was having serious issues, and we were having trouble finding the infrastructure to help him. And he was a veteran. He served in the Navy, and we looked around for different types of treatment and couldn't find the right treatment. And it was finally when we found, when he got his veterans benefits approved, it was when we got that, we finally found we had the infrastructure that we needed to adequately support him. But without that, we were still scrambling and struggling and trying to make things up and, testing programs in different cities. And there wasn't a program close enough to where my parents live. And so you bring that up, and I immediately think of my father, and I think of others, that have served in the military with post-traumatic stress disorder, especially people serving in combat.
Yes.
It's a very serious, life-changing type of situation that I think those of us that haven't done that, we can't fully understand, what they go through other than just trying to listen.
Right.
But I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's a whole different dimension of this, and that the mainstream media is not talking about that. So I'm really glad we're having this conversation to tell people that it's an issue and it needs to be dealt with, and that thousands of veterans have this problem. So,
well, you know what? I just by what each one of you have shared and the energy and the passion you've talked about, I'll certainly do a blab on this. I am not an expert on it, but certainly I'm sure that between Elisa, yourself, and Jeremy, we can get some people who would that are strong enough, because it's not easy. It's a continuous challenge. That it's something that needs to be chatted about, and I think a platform like this one for them to share about would mean the world to them and those who love them in a big way. So definitely And Hardball Media G saying we're not assisting the children of vets and helping them understand. So that's even another area there, the children of these individuals that are suffering from the PTSD. There's two areas. There's the actual people who are suffering and those who love them. That's two different areas right there that need to be addressed. So that's strong. So before we let the Blab finish off, I'll have each one of you give some closing thoughts. So first off, Tony.
Well, it's interesting that, we're having this conversation. It's really been on my mind, about the young people that are in their 20s that are suffering to such an extent that they feel it's necessary to go out and kill other people and then kill themselves. And in a sense, it's almost as if they are in a lot of ways imitating the terrorists that are abroad, in that it's not a religious, or, I guess we can't say what's in their mind, but, they are not openly saying that they are committing some type of religious suicide in terms of killing other people, but it seems as if they have no problem with killing people and then killing themselves. And if that's not a red flag that something needs to be done as far as mental health, I don't know what is.
Okay. No problem. And Tony, if people want to connect up with you, whether it's Blab or Twitter, how can they do that?
They can connect. They can follow me on Twitter. I'm a streaming voice. I'm a streaming voice on Gmail. So if you want to email me, you can email me at astreamingvoice@gmail.com. Yeah, those are the two best ways to, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Blab. I'm a streaming voice on Meerkat.
Okay. Good stuff. Next up, Jeremy, thanks again for stopping by and taking a seat. Some closing thoughts.
Well, I think one of the most important things I can say is, we all have the opportunity to help people that are struggling, and to recognize that, and to kind of learn what the warning signs are and that type of thing. And but I think it's very important that if you take on that caretaker role, and I've done this, you have to have a tag team set up so that no caregiver goes down, because you can have a spillover effect with caregivers just kind of feeling overwhelmed and not knowing what to do and not knowing where to turn. And so that's why it's so important that you have a network of family and friends, that a nucleus around this person to keep them stabilized, and to make sure that the caregivers are stabilized. And if a caregiver gets overstressed and all that you're tagging someone else and getting them to take over for a while, and, just kind of alternating, figuring out who's going to do what to help that person. And I think if there's that level of cooperation around each person that's struggling, I think you'd see a radical transformation in how we're dealing with mental health in this country. And I hope that we can get there, but it's going to take a lot of time and effort and collaboration and cooperation among each other throughout the country and around the world.
Excellent. And if people connect with you, Jeremy, how is the best way? How are the best ways?
People can follow me on Twitter. I'm Jeremy P. Murphy on Twitter. Can follow me on Blab. If you want to email me, it's jeremypmurphy@gmail.com. And I also have the Positivity Patrol website is positivitypatrol.com.
Very nice. I like that. It's great. And the anchor, Ms. Word, some closing words, and also how people can get in touch with you. I know you can live up to the billing, Ms. Word. You've done it before. You can do it again.
Well, I definitely want to, my closing words are, and going back to what you just mentioned, Tony, about these shooters and the things that are going on, and the key thread that shooters who are not necessarily related to the terrorists have in common is, look at me. Look at me. Somebody look at me. Pay attention to me. See me. Know me. And we need to make sure that we see our children, that we know them, that we pay attention to them, that we see our spouses, we see our coworkers, we see our employees, we know our employees. Look at me. Not what I'm wearing, not what I own, not what job I have, not what title, but look at me. So through EI and my program, Chapter 2 Living, the one thing that I do on a regular basis is help people to understand that yesterday was yesterday. Today is today. We rebrand your mind. We refocus your life so that from this day forward, when I look at you, I don't care what you did, where you've been, where you've come from, where you've fallen short, and where you've had successes in the past. Today, I look at you and help you to look at yourself, love yourself, and use it as a foundation for growth, for forward motion in your life. So you can find me on my website, chapter2living.com. I'm on Twitter and on Blab as ADUB, the number 4 spirit. And I'm also on Instagram as ADUB for spirit. And if if you guys ever have anything that you're
Wonderful.
working on and you want to sit down and chat, let's do it.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's been a phenomenal conversation. We had some challenges getting it happen, but once it happened, it just took off to the level that I knew it was going to. I am Dr. I'm also producer of the Dr. Vibe Show, award-winning Dr. Vibe Show. I'm also host and co-producer of the monthly event project show, eventproject.com. Also, coming up in the very near future, we show one-on-one conversations with men. So get ready for that one. I'd like to say thank you to each one of you. I've learned immensely. Thank you for making this time together better. And please stay in touch by all means. And I think we're going to be doing another show within a month with Alicia. So I'm hoping that you guys can join up into this conversation about mental health, emotional intelligence, because it's not getting enough
Thanks, everybody.
exposure, whether it's in regular media or especially on Blab. We're gonna drive this home. So, as always, I like to say, God bless, peace, be well, keep the faith. You're blessed and highly favored. Miracles and your solution for someone's problem. Thanks for everyone who stopped by, especially at Hardball Media. Good night, everybody.
See you.